All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Greta Lorenz, and I'm president-elect of Minnesota PRSA, and a very warm welcome to you all to our January Career Coffee. I am so excited to introduce our guest speaker today. Glenda Watry has led teams across North America in all sizes of organizations, ranging from hundreds to over 2,000 people to achieve goals they didn't think they could achieve. She's an award-winning leader and individual, being recognized for achievements that were labeled as impossible or never been done before. From driving revenue and growth to collaborating with cross-functional teams to roll out and train new platforms, touching over 20,000 people. Glenda learned that success came when she unlocked the potential in individuals on her teams by being curious and listening. Together, her teams took ideation, innovation, collaboration, and fun to a new level, all while doing what was most thought to be impossible. Today, Glenda works with CEOs and sales leaders to navigate messy, complex, and often lonely sales problems, uniting stakeholders to ignite and sustain growth. She makes her audiences think differently about what emotional blockers are and how you successfully navigate the blocks. For today's presentation, please put your questions in the chat, and we welcome you to turn your cameras on, especially during the discussion. So with that, please help me welcome Glenda Watry.
Thank you, Greta. It is my pleasure to be with this group today. As I have learned more about PRSA over the last few weeks and months, I am awed and honored to be with a group that creates what I see as impact at those intersections, that convergence of social impact, the creative economy, media, journalism, communications, where some of the most powerful work is happening, where words matter, and those words have the capacity to drive change, fuel economies, and shape the future. So I'm so excited to be with this dynamic group. So we're going to talk about emotional blockers, those things that get in your way and are unproductive, whether they be in a work environment or personally. And so what are emotional blockers? So if we go to the science of our thoughts and what may be part of the cause of our emotional blocks, on average, we think 60,000 thoughts per day. I'm exhausted already. And when you dive deeper, 80% of those thoughts are negative. So they just drain us. And believe it or not, 90% of the thoughts that we're thinking today are exactly the same thoughts that we thought yesterday. So while everyone just marinades in that for a moment, I want to share a story. So in the middle of my corporate career, I was asked to lead the sales efforts of a startup business line. And by year 3, we had taken that $1 million pilot to a $20 million business line with enough metrics and data to predict within 5% where we would land for sales revenue. We knew every lever that we needed to pull. And I was prepared to open 6 new markets when our largest business line had a huge misstep, which caused a hiring freeze across the entire organization. And because our numbers were so dialed in and we knew exactly what was possible with every lever that we pulled, I absolutely dreaded my next team meeting following the news. Our sales goal was based on the fact that we would have 6 more sellers, which now meant that 80% of our team would have to achieve a stretch goal to win for themselves individually and for our team, of which had never been done. So my inside voice, some of those emotional blockers for myself were screaming, well, that's not fair. That's, no matter how I looked at every spreadsheet, it was impossible. And there was absolutely no evidence that we could ever come close to our sales goal. So as we met for our team meeting, there was zero energy. The usual chatter and laughter were absent. Their eyes were watching my every move. You could see their shoulders just slumped. And they were silently waiting with dread for me to deliver the outrageously unfair and impossible sales goals following the news of the hiring freeze because they knew they were going to have to pick up the gap. I took a deep breath, and in that moment, I dumped my entire prepared agenda, all of the corporate speak I had planned to say. And instead, I said, I don't know about you, but I have yet to receive a company goal, a company sales goal that met my personal goals. So we're going to do things a little different. What amount of money do you each need to make a difference in your life or in the life of your family? And I want you to name it. And each person proceeded to name what would make a difference in their life. For Denise, it was paying for college for 2 kids. Angela was renovating her kitchen. Emerald was saving for her dream car, a red convertible. And the emotional blockers were visible. The negative inner dialogue was no longer inner, it was audible. And yet every week we talked about their progress to achieving the dream car, the kitchen renovation, the college tuition. And they spoke about the amount of activities and sales goals, not in terms of a sales goal, but in terms of their personal goal. And you could see the care that they had for each other's goals. And it was nothing I had ever experienced before. That team achieved something that there was zero evidence of being possible. And they exceeded their annual sales goal with 6 empty spots on the team roster, and 100% of them hit their stretch goal. And from that moment on, I was fascinated with the power of our thoughts and how to unlock the potential of people to have an impact in what may appear to be impossible situations. And so that led me to dive deep into conscious versus subconscious brain. And so when you think of the conscious brain, it's your intellectual mind. So I break it down, I simplify it. There's a lot more behind it. But your conscious brain is where your thoughts come from, your ideas, the creative process, where you either feed the ideas or you discard them. Your conscious mind, and this is really key, has the ability to accept or reject thoughts. The subconscious brain or the unconscious brain is your emotional mind, known as your programmed mind. It controls things like breathing and things that you don't even want to think about. Keeps you alive, it keeps you safe. It's where your self-identity and self-belief live. It's where your who am I live. The interesting thing here, conversely from the conscious brain, is that your subconscious mind must accept the thought you have, regardless if it's positive or negative. So for example, who has experienced a roller coaster ride? So just type in the chat, yeah, oh good, raise your hand, or type in the chat roller coaster. And what's interesting about this is your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between you actually riding on a roller coaster or you thinking about riding on the roller coaster, where you can feel yourself going up and you can feel that if you're in the front of the very first car, you know that adrenaline as you're looking down and you can feel it. And your subconscious brain believes that that's what you're experiencing. You can produce the same adrenaline and physical and emotional responses. And your subconscious brain says it's true. So throughout the remainder of our time, we're going to talk through creating 4 thinking shifts to really unlock the power of you. And our first shift, we're going to go from destructive self-talk to empowering self-talk. So the purpose of this exercise is to really ensure that you're speaking to yourself in a positive and uplifting way, and that you are completely solid on why you are the most amazing, talented person, perfect for everything that you're stepping into. And some of those examples are, I am creative, I'm a problem solver. And the juicier and stronger you make the language, the better. So I'm going to give everyone a minute, and I'm going to ask you to start with 10 I am statements. So take just a minute and start writing those down, and I will time it. All right, 10 seconds left. All right. So as you started to do this exercise, who thought it was easy? So I see some head nods, a little bit, some, yeah, a little, little mix. Who thought it was really hard? Oh, yeah, some nods there. All right, so the first time I did this exercise, I struggled. I couldn't think of very many positive words to say. And so I started with, I am nice. So very Minnesotan of me. um, and the reason we struggle is because our inner critic, our subconscious brain, is not very nice and really is loud and can be very destructive. So how we talk to ourselves is so important. And so I'm going to challenge you to do 3 things that will make a difference for you. When you do this exercise, the real exercise is getting to 50. 50 I am powerful, empowering, uplifting statements. And once you get those down, even if you just get to 25 and you don't get to all 50, that's fine. Get as far as you can. And once you do that, say them out loud. And then the next part of that exercise is to say it out loud again, but look at yourself in the mirror. Is it uncomfortable? Yep. Can it be awkward? Maybe. Powerful? Absolutely. And you owe it to yourself to do this. The next thinking shift is going from awareness of our trigger words that we use or that we experience in different settings and how to minimize some of those trigger words. And so let's think about how this will play out at work. Does anyone have at least 1 meeting per day on your calendar? Where everyone's like, what about 3? My whole day is filled, right? Back to back. So when you think about meetings that you look forward to, why? Or the meetings that you dread, why do you dread them? I would anticipate that there are trigger words that can escalate our emotional blockers that you're experiencing. And I would bet that we all have been to those meetings where something broke down, where because of what was said, we became defensive, or worse, we stayed silent. And what words do we use to describe the problem that we're solving when we're in those meetings? Are we using language like these trigger words that blow things out of proportion or make the situation seem worse than it really is? Words like terrible, perfect, every, nothing, worst, never, everyone, best, always. Words like these can be used judiciously and yet can be triggering, and there are consequences if used in the wrong way. There's the meeting after the meeting, where it becomes a drama fest, where it steals your energy and your team's momentum. Or the nonstop group chats or group texts. They seem harmless. The chat is maybe just that much needed opportunity to vent, or it could be the thoughts that keep you stuck and impact progress and deadlines and career opportunities. Precious trust and respect can be broken sometimes when we use these words. So I want you to think about when and where and with whom have you used these trigger words, or you've experienced them. Do you have an opportunity, or what is the opportunity to potentially repair or recover? And when are you scheduling that conversation? And that leads me to what I call 5 seconds of courage. 5 seconds of courage to say the thing that can get an entire team on track to build progressive momentum. 5 seconds of courage to reframe word choices and how we consciously think through the opportunities to build relationships and solve problems together. I had one of those situations that I was working with a group, and there was a team that had a lot of that meeting after the meeting, and there was an unproductive group chat. And following our workshop, someone reached out to me to say, I had the courage to say, we are better than that. And that really, really stuck with me, that all it takes is 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So I challenge you to look for your 5-second opportunities. And when you hear those absolutes and trigger words, let's reframe that to take a both and approach to thinking, where multiple things can be true at once. And that's a very powerful concept that isn't often used. We usually go to either or thinking, which means someone has to be a winner or a loser. And the trigger word in either or language is, you can do that, but, and everyone's like, oh, rather shift to, well, you can do that, and we could. So the both and allows ideas and solutions to build, and more people will actively participate. As always, check your accountability. What words are you choosing? How do you need to adjust? And it's about progress, not perfection. So we're going to talk about the perfection mindset to a progress mindset. And with the friends that I have in the PR communications world, I know that perfection is really part of the DNA of the industry. And so I will fully admit I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. I like to say I'm a perfectionist in progress, which leads me to just how that comes to life. And so I'm just going to share a little story. So does anyone go tent camping? And if you go tent camping, yep, raise your hand if you're on camera, or write yes in the chat. So my husband grew up tent camping. He wanted our children to have the same experience, and I did not grow up tent camping or camping in general. I had zero knowledge of it. And yet he delegated all of the meal planning to me. So I'm Googling all sorts of recipes and options when I came across this amazing s'mores recipe intended for camping. And so I'm excitedly telling my husband, well, you know, it's just amazing. Like, we could get these great waffle cones, the ice cream shop down the street. Oh, they have these great homemade waffle cones. And then you put in your chocolate chips at the bottom and you fill it with marshmallows, and we'll wrap it in tin foil. And then, when we roast them, oh, it'll be amazing. And honey, because you're a machinist, I now need you to make me a special container so the cones don't get damaged in transit. Otherwise it will ruin the experience. And to my husband's credit, he patiently listened intently to every word, and then he calmly said, Did you just make s'mores complicated? Yes, I did. And that happens, that's a personal story of how perfection can get in your way. But it now gives us that opportunity that when my perfectionism starts rising, he will just say, "Are we gearing up for a s'mores moment?" Completely takes down the heat. So I'm going to encourage you to find your own s'mores moments where you can find that common language that takes down the heat from that. And so many ask me, what does it look like to move from perfection to progress? And so as we go through these pieces, I want you to write some notes where those resonate for you, whether they be personally or in work. And so this is what it sounds like. From perfection to progress, failure is unacceptable to failure is inevitable. Where the growth happens is in those failure moments. Never good enough to good enough is enough. In a perfection mindset, we focus on the flaws. Progress, we focus on the improvement. Perfection tends to be anchored in that judgment or shame, where progress is anchored in curiosity and compassion. Perfection, outcomes are good or bad. And in progress, outcomes are just information to make a different decision, another step towards the direction that we're moving to solve something. And finally, our fourth thinking shift is moving from awareness of how our thinking impacts decision making and our ability to accept or reject change. So when you think of the subconscious versus conscious, our subconscious mind uses an if-then rationalization that sounds like this. And just for the sake of keeping it where everybody probably has experienced this, the decision to get healthy, to work out, or to eat healthy. So it could sound like, if I had enough time, then I would decide to work out. Well, if I had enough money, then I would decide to join a gym. If I had more skills, then I would decide I could do it in my own basement. I'd have the equipment, I could do that. And if I knew how, then I would figure it all out. And if all of these things are true, then I would make a decision and achieve my goal. And since none of these things are true right now, let's not start. And it will all sound so logical. And the problem is, it sounds logical because it's our own data. And people don't argue with their own data. So our conscious mind is reversed. And in action, the way to make a decision is you make a decision. You actually think about the decision and make it. And you actually have to decide first. And then it sounds like this. I'm going to get healthy and I'm going to work out. I will find the time or make the time. I will find the money or figure out the money to join a gym that fits my budget. I will learn the skills, and if I can't figure out the skills, I'll find someone who can help me. I am brilliant and I will figure out how. When we live on the cause side, we make it happen. And if we choose to live on the effect side, there's always a reason why we can't. So as we head into the discussion and the conversation, how will you leverage one of the four shifts of thinking? And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing so that we can have the discussion. So we'll start there, and you can put your, Greta, I don't know if you're going to read the chats.
Yep. I'm looking at the chat, but also you're welcome just to jump right in or raise your hand and then jump in. Well, I'm just going to start with a little prompt question then. And that is, it's kind of related to what Glenda just said, but tell us if there's, a specific takeaway that you think you can implement even this week.
Yeah, I think those trigger words really are very revealing because it's almost like a self prophecy fulfillingness when you hear them, and it's just common to react a certain way because you kind of can get conditioned that way. So I really like that. I like everything you said, but that one really resonated with me too, because I know how that can frame your thought process and take you down a path that makes it hard to get progress.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they can definitely limit. Thank you.
Greta, if I could jump in,
Yes.
I work with a bunch of students. I teach at the U, right? I'm also their PRSSA advisor. And there are times when I catch myself remembering that they are students, not young professionals, right? And I had to take a big step back. And one of the things that you mentioned was progress, not perfection, because my student board changes every year, right? So we're working really hard to get continuity there and growing the chapter back since COVID. Well, it's very hard to have continuity. It would be like a whole work team like leaves and you get a whole brand new work team in, which rarely ever happens, right? You lose a couple of people and there's always people there to transition. I don't always get that with students. And so it's hard for me. Wow, there are times when I really have to bite my lip and think about the progress and help them understand that we're moving the chapter forward, right? We can't take on everything all at once. And so what if we forgot to publicize an activity soon enough and this year we're not going to be able to take people to this particular meeting or that particular meeting? You know, we learn from that. We put it in the notes on our Google Drive. We'll know that next year in the fall, we have to get ready for this activity that's happening in the spring. So here's how we're going to prevent that from happening in the future. And I really try to focus with them on learning from our failures instead of feeling bad about it. Like, oh my God, people aren't going to get to do this. What are we going to do to make sure this opportunity is here next time?
I love that.
Yeah, that resonates a lot, Jill, what you just said. And I think I'm just looking at Betsy on camera here too. And I think we feel that all the time, even with the chapter. Like we want everything to be just the most amazing. We want this to be the most amazing year for PRSA and the next year and the next year. And, sometimes it's like, oh, we can't get the newsletter out on time because everybody's busy and all the things. So it so resonates with me, what you just said.
Well, we go back to no one's going to die if this doesn't
Right,
happen,
exactly.
right?
It's PR, not ER, right?
Well, and if the newsletter is a day late, no one's going to notice, right?
Right.
We just care that it's there.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I know what you mean though, and it's the same thing with the students because sometimes they feel really bad, and it's like, okay, we're going to learn from this. You're going to put something in our documentation, and it'll be great next time.
I know I saw the note come in, PR, not ER, great motto, and couldn't agree more. Sometimes we put all of that pressure on ourselves through those thoughts that no one else is hearing, but they're loud in our heads of the expectations. And where did those expectations come from? Right?
Hi, Glenda. I really enjoyed your talk, and sorry I was late. Yeah, the exercise was interesting. The first 7 I spit out pretty easily, and then I started thinking of the negative ones. So 25 to 50, that's a good stretch goal. I also made a note when you said people don't argue with their own data, which is true, but I think that is something we do subconsciously, and we do have to kind of bring that to the forefront. I work at Padilla. We've got a table. I'm sure a lot of workplaces have this, like free stuff, right? Like people put out books. I love books. So I picked up one recently called Difficult Conversations. And of course it touts it for like work, home, your relationships, like all the things. And so I'm thinking about that book too. And one of the points they made is that many situations, there's not like a right way and a wrong way. There's a your way and a my way, and they might be different, but we need to be open to the possibility that we could both be right, or we could both be wrong, I guess. So,
Mhm.
yeah, and I had a tough meeting yesterday, and I'm thinking about the courageous conversation. And we've got a couple beliefs at Padilla. One is own it and act on it, and the other is make it better. So it's interesting what you're saying about like the meeting after the meeting. I think if it's fine to debrief, if
Mhm.
it's helpful to help us understand, well, I think in this particular situation, one, what can we do to make things right in this particular situation? And what can we learn from this to avoid this in the future, make it better for the next client, account, project, et cetera. So that wasn't really a question. That's just me barfing out a lot of stuff, which this group is used to.
I think it's wonderful. One of the things that you said at the very beginning was in the I am exercise, like the first few were really easy, and then it started to get difficult, and you actually went to that negative side. And so one of the other tips that I would give you as I've gone through more of this learning for myself is that to get your conscious brain thinking to in a normal routine that you're doing. So when you get out of bed, to consciously feel the floor from your feet. Feel the carpet, feel the whatever you're stepping on, actually feel it. When you brush your teeth, consciously, when's the last time you consciously brushed your teeth and felt the toothbrush on your teeth and the movement and the bristles? And when you take yourself to that deep, deep level of something as simple as those things, it interrupts your inner critic that's sabotaging you. And it actually raises up your creative sage powers to be able to be creative and think differently. So that's something simple that you can do in your everyday routine.
Love that. Betsy, did you have a question? I think I saw you come off mute.
Oh, I was just going to say that progress over perfection. I was talking to somebody and I said, there are times that I just can't get everything done in the day. And we've talked about the very basics of like, do it to 80%, don't do it to 110%. And I said, but that just doesn't make me happy. like getting okay with it's not going to be perfect. That's the stumbling block. It seems pretty basic, but that's a stumbling block for me. Like, I'm just not as happy that way. I'm not okay with that emotion. So I don't know if others can relate or have any ideas, but
Sometimes it's how we define it. I think that would be, when I think of the workshops I've done with different groups, it always comes down to how they define what is good, what, like that perfection piece. The bar that we hold ourselves to is usually almost unreachable at times. So what are the wins along the way on that journey?
Betsy, I'm thinking about like for me, so I have self-diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder. And so I like to do certain things in a certain order like that. So that's what made me think of it. Like I like things to be orderly and blah, blah, blah. And you know, you and I used to work at an agency together. Like, I mean, how many orderly days do you have? Like me, not many. And so what I've tried to do is get more comfortable with that. And like something that's helped me, and this might help you, is if you can find a mentor or someone you admire or somebody who does things differently than you, and you can kind of channel that person and be like, well, how would so-and-so handle this? And so when I'm having those days where I'm just like spinning, like, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do, I don't know where to start. Like, and oftentimes it's on a Friday, right? Like, oh my gosh, I just want this weekend to start. And I'll just like make myself a list, like, what do I like absolutely have to get done today so I can enjoy my weekend? Or maybe I decide, you know what, at some point on Friday, like I'm ready to call it, but I'm going to work on this over the weekend or get up early Monday morning and work on it or whatever. So, but I see Brant has his hand raised, so I'll be.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Leah. I thought the opening that you had, Glenda, was really powerful, where it had the statistics on the one side and then that story. And I was curious about the story. Did then you have like a follow-up with meeting the goals? Like, did the person get a convertible and take everybody for a ride, or was there a follow-up to that?
There was absolutely a follow-up story. So as people achieved their goals, they took a picture of the thing. Like, we got to see the kitchen when it was done, and like the upgrades that Angela had done because she earned more money than she thought she could. We never did see any like payments of the tuition, but we did see the red convertible. And Emerald, literally, she had her husband take pictures, and then she did a little video with the top down and them driving, and she lived in California, so we got to see like the ocean as she drove by. So it was magical how that team celebrated and anchored in and then kept it alive the entire year and celebrated with each other. And like to this day, they still bring it up. And that was like 17, 18 years ago. It was a long time ago, but it was so amazing.
That's great. And I just had one other question. And so, were you saying that like get to 50 positive I am statements and say it out loud looking in the mirror? It sounds powerful, but challenging. Like, how frequently do you do that? Or is it just like as needed, or?
So I'm really glad you asked that question because it's not a one and done. This is one of those habits that you do a little bit each day. So when you go through the exercise, you don't have to do 50 every day, but pick 5, pick another 5. Just add them into, like, while you're brushing your teeth. I am amazing. I am so talented. Like add it into an existing routine, because then it sticks. It starts to become real and a habit. It also, I have coached folks who are looking for new careers. And this exercise, when they head into an interview, completely anchors them for a way of speaking about themselves, their stories, what they've achieved, what they've done, in a way that in that transition, many people are not confident. They're feeling probably at their lowest. And so having that confidence and that power, that exercise really takes them to a different level.
Great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
That's really great. I love, Betsy, your comment about using your computer password just as a moment of positivity, because you're logging in every day and maybe multiple times. What a great way to do that. And Amy's note about, just desk signs and, just constant reminders, so helpful to have all of those things, at the ready. What about the 5-second challenge, or the 5 seconds of courage challenge? Would love to hear what people have thought about that. I think we had, a little bit of a conversation about that earlier, but that's a super interesting concept, and just like reframing things in taking those just a few seconds to really kind of shift the mindset. Would love to hear people's thoughts on that.
Greta, I'll just say for me, it usually takes more than 5 seconds. So
Fair enough.
like for me, yeah, it doesn't come naturally. I'm working on it. What I am also trying to work on is not just immediately saying the words that come to mind, because sometimes those words aren't very nice and they need some editing. And so I try to I do sit on stuff a little longer now so I can hopefully say
Mhm.
the right words.
I agree that sometimes it can, that 5 seconds of courage takes a lot more than 5 seconds. And I calm myself down, and when I hear something that I think needs a response, with simply saying, "Tell me more,"
Mhm.
which is really neutral. I feel like it's really neutral, as opposed to, let's reframe that into something more generous, or it just comes with an immediate judgment. So
Mhm.
tell me more is my magic 3 words, whether it's a client saying something that is either critical or outrageous, or they want more, tell me more, as opposed to, no, that's not what you're paying for, or so it calms me down, and I think it's an open invitation to the person um, who might be in the middle of something, and you just want to say, tell me more.
Oh, that curiosity is really powerful. It absolutely, absolutely gives you that 5 seconds in a very tangible, natural, open way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think the 5 second rule for me, or the 5 seconds of courage, is the one thing. There's many things that I'll take away from today, but that's the one thing I want to act on. I mean, there's so many times when you're sitting in a meeting, you're just going, I can't believe they just said that. Or no, all those trigger words. And I always sit silent. And then, after the meeting happens, and it's just not productive. So it's better to have those meetings in the actual meeting and have everybody on the same page. So it's the right thing to do, right? It's honoring and respectful to do that out in the open.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I would love to hear, as if folks are willing to share at some point, the different shifts and how you've implemented them as you share feedback with PRSA.
Yeah, I love that tell me more tip, Lee.
Mhm.
That's
That's
good. 'Cause
great.
that's only 3 words. I can remember 3 words. So short is good. But yeah, moving from uh away from judgment and towards curiosity is good. Glenda, I also liked your kind of mindfulness tips of putting your feet on the floor or brushing your teeth or whatever, because I think for what we do, most of us don't make stuff, right? We're not building cabinets or digging ditches or whatever. It's a lot of stuff up here. And we can really get stuck up here, and we can ruminate. Like, I probably won't get everything done today that I'd like to get done. And so then I just like drive myself crazy. And like, it just reminds me of something else I read, like a similar tip to like get yourself out of that is to like narrate to yourself what you're doing. Like, I am brushing my teeth, I am washing the dishes. And it sounds dumb, but we like need that to stop the spin cycle. So yeah, I appreciated those tips.
Absolutely. A couple of additional tips when you talk about that component is that physical change of environment. And so if you have the flexibility to get up from your desk, and sometimes if you're working from home, walk around your house, sit in a different location. That's why they always say some of the best ideas happen in the shower, is because you're thinking about, but you're doing different things, you're moving, and that also opens up space for ways to think about things and get out of those feelings going on in your head and thoughts going on in your head.
That's a good point. I have to say, I do a lot of fitness on the side, so that movement is a big thing, because I think you just sit and you're sedentary. I think then your mind can just wander, and I just think even if taking a short walk, short break to get a treat, whatever that may be, can really make the difference.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
The other thing, Lee, I liked about Tell Me More is, again, just giving you all my book report on difficult conversations, is that we think we have all the information, right? We think we have it all, but we don't. How could we, right? Like, I don't know Greta's inner monologue. I mean, she might be thinking, Leah, stop talking and give other people time to talk. I don't know, but we don't know. So asking, inviting that is good. Like, and I'll just give you guys a personal example. Don't tell my husband. Are we recording? Well, we are recording this. That's okay. He already knows. Like last night, and I would just say too, like if you're somebody who has anxiety or lives with someone from anxiety. So like last night, our 3 kids were over for dinner and he was like, Phoebe, take the Altima or whatever. She was going to take a car back to campus. Piper, can you drive the Flex tomorrow morning? I'm like, God, Brian, why are you being so bossy? I'm thinking this to myself, like, why are you being so bossy? Just like, we're all adults. We can figure out like what car to drive, or we can deal with the constant, like, what is up with this? But I didn't, because I'm working on this. I didn't say like, dude, what's up? But this morning I'm like, you know, I bet he just wanted to make sure the Honda was home so he could put the tabs on the car for me. And so I didn't say it to him right away this morning when he got up, because one of our rules, he doesn't follow it, but I'm trying to, is like, let's just not talk maybe for the first 60 minutes. Like, for sure, you need to drink a cup of coffee before I'm about to say this thing to you. But, and sometimes who was saying the camping thing, like, are you turning this into a s'mores thing? So that's like one of our little, like, I'm going to disarm you things, is like, I'm just curious. Like, so like, I'm not judging you. Like, I'm just curious. Like, I said, you know, were you telling everybody what car to drive last night? Because you wanted to put the tabs on my car today. And he goes, well, yeah. And there were other reasons. And he got into that. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm just curious why you didn't just say that. Like, hey, Phoebe, can you take the Altima? Because I want to put the tabs on mom's car or whatever. So anyway, so sorry, I'm turning this into therapy session where I'm talking about how relationships are a lot of work and all the things, but yeah. Okay,
That's
Cynthia
awesome.
is putting something in the chat. It's probably really smart. I'm gonna go read it. Oh,
So Leah, is that where you say to your husband this morning, you seem to be really concerned about which car was going out last night? Tell me more.
I'm gonna use that, Lee, and I'm gonna totally steal it and not give you any credit, but I'll report
Oh,
back
it
and let
is
you know how
not.
it goes.
It is not. I think it's something I learned when I was at Best Buy as a manager, that there were lots of crises coming up all the time. And so I just learned, sit in your cubicle, look at the person and say, tell me more. So
Well,
it's
and
not-
I would say too, so I've mostly worked at agencies, and I did hear somebody one time who was like at an agency and then went client side. And what this person learned from that was like, wow, how we're really at a deficit being at an agency, because we don't know everything that goes on inside an organization, right? So that's where that tell me more could be helpful too, to try and like elicit some more, like, what is really going on here? So
yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Glenda, I just wanted to say the first thing I wrote down is something that I really will take away is your sharing of that when you asked everybody in the room what their personal goals were. And oh my gosh, just truly that's what you learn, maybe, hopefully, when you say tell me more, is you learn I just need to get enough money to pay tuition for my kids' college this semester. Or, you know, a real tactical life challenge, or I want to go back to school, or I want to drive that red convertible. That how empowering that would be for your team to know that you, as their supervisor or boss or colleague, knows that's what you're working for. And so, you know, to be able to check in and go and either you know, ask them for an update or to celebrate it with them, that knowing each other's personal goals really attaches you in a relationship, whether that's personal or a a colleague, but how empowering that would be, and how great that would feel to know that my boss really knew what my personal goal was, the kind of why I work. Yes, I love my work, but more important, maybe not more importantly, but equally important, I have this personal goal and I really want to get there. And this work is helping me do that through the money I receive. So a really great thing. As Amy and I are going into our mastermind retreat this weekend, it's something that we support each other on. We know what each other's personal and professional goals are, but I don't know if we really say, did you accomplish that? And then to do that real comforting, empowering celebration with each other. Right, Amy?
Right, Lee. As you know, we're not very good at holding each other accountable, so.
We've become such good friends that we now sometimes go like, oh, that's okay.
And that is part of, like, Lee, what you just shared and the impact that had on you, that completely changed how I led every team after that point. Because I had leaders who had said to me, don't get too close to your employees. You don't really want to get to know them personally because you'll probably have to fire them. Like, literally, that was what I was told. And I was like, well, that's a sad statement of, like, if I'm there to help them be successful and to get them where they need to go, but you're telling me not to get to know them, that seems completely in opposition. And when we had that experience with that team that did something that no one walked into it thinking we could, that changed everything for me and changed the connections that I had. To this day, that team's like everybody else, everybody's in some other different organization doing something different. Some are retired even, and they all still keep in touch with me. And that was what I wanted to create everywhere I went, every team I led, and every organization I now work with. That's part of my mission when I, yes, I'm solving sales problems, but that part of uniting stakeholders to achieve it is so core to how I operate. Thank you, Lee.
Well, that sounds like perfection, not just progress.
That's it is. It's like I said, it's I'm working on that.
Yes, no, it's definitely everything's in progress. Everything's in progress. Any final questions from this group here? This has been an amazing conversation. Thanks everybody for being so participatory and coming on camera and sharing some vulnerable moments. And just, I think we're all learning. It was, we're learning a lot from Glenda, but also learning so much from each other too. And I hope these conversations can continue while we are in this amazing organization together. And as we see each other at future events, that's a great way to start the day. For sure. I totally believe that. So yes, with that, I think we'll close things out for the day, but you'll all receive a copy of the recording, and anyone who was not able to make it will also receive this recording and can learn from Glenda and information about how to contact Glenda if there's any further follow-up questions, or if you're looking for anyone to present to your organization about this topic or something similar. I'm sure Glenda would entertain that as well, to continue to grow her business that she's doing, and the work that she's bringing to so many, all the individuals she's touched so far, and those she hopes to continue with her journey.
Thank you very much for the time and the opportunity, and everyone make it a great day and a great week.